Well, I told you guys a couple weeks ago I got a new hat, and it's very appropriate that it showed up today of all days. It's also very ironic. You'll see why in a minute. But yeah, let's look at the new hat, and then I will tell you about the video. So there it is, a new Kyle Busch hat. The Joe Gibbs one was outdated, and I figured bet MGM. We're about to talk about some odds on the Daytona 500. We're going to talk about the Daytona 500 itself, everything about it. And then I'm obviously going to give you some of my picks, some of my predictions. I'm going to do this new thing. I give myself a budget, and then I tell you the picks I make. But yes, the Daytona 500 just a couple of days away, we hope. We'll talk about that in a minute. But ultimately, yes, NASCAR is back. We got the Truck Series tonight, the Xfinity Series tomorrow. ARCA has been moved up to tonight for all of you ARCA fans out there. And then the Cup Series supposed to be on Sunday. Before we get into that, so we got a NASCAR Fantasy League. I've been promoting it all week. Go ahead and join the league. There's like 10, 11 people in it now. So join on in. It's all for fun. We're going to have a good time. I'll show you my lineup at the end of this thing. But yeah, so let's look at some odds and let's make some predictions. So I'm doing something different here. I've done an odds video in the past. I did it for the F1 race at Las Vegas. It was very appropriate for that. But yes, we're going to look at some odds. I gave myself a small budget. And, well, yes, technically I am in a state that cannot bet or legally bet. So I have not bet this, and I cannot bet this, but this is just a hypothetical. But we look at the numbers. I give you some past trends, all of that stuff. First, some general information about the race, the Daytona 500. It's 500 miles long, in case you were wondering what the 500 was. That's 200 laps around the 2.5-mile Daytona International Speedway. The race is supposed to be Sunday at 2:30 Eastern, but there is a high chance of rain most of Sunday. There's a chance it could happen Sunday night, but if it's not going to happen Sunday, it will happen Monday with the time to be determined. Now, as for the race itself, this is the third Daytona 500 in the next-gen car, the first one in 2022, and of course the second one last year. The last three winners of the Daytona 500 have all come from 33-1 or worse odds. In 2021, Michael McDowell won the Daytona 500 at 66-1 odds. Austin Cindric won it in 2022 at 33-1 odds. And then Ricky Stenhouse Jr. last year won it at 40-1 odds. So long shots winning the Daytona 500 has become a trend in recent years. Yes, a favorite like Denny Hamlin in 2020 and 2019 may happen, and it's very possible, but this race is unpredictable. The super speedways are unpredictable. Chaos happens, and we do get underdog winners a good chunk of the time. So that can really just mess with any bets you may make. If you're a big Chase Elliott fan, if you're a big Kyle Larson fan, and they're up there in the favorites, and you bet them, well, it can all come unraveled. They can be leading for a good chunk of this thing, but then, they get shuffled back to fifth, and then next thing you know, there's a big crash and they're done. These style of races are very difficult to nail down. But yes, as for the rules of this new game, I guess I'm inventing, I give myself an imaginary $100 budget. Yes, it's so much money, $100, but we're going to go through a number of things, not just the race winner. We're going to look at the amount of laps led, the amount of laps led by a single driver, over-unders on drivers to finish in the top 10 by manufacturer, and more. The first thing I do want to look at is the manufacturer bet, and that is which manufacturer will win this race. Well, this one is a little bit more tough. As you can see, all of them are plus 220 or, closer to even. So it's a really tough one to make, but, the field is a little bit more, I guess, evenly split than it was last year or even 2 years ago. Toyota used to only have 5 or 6 cars in the field, but they have added Legacy Motor Club, and Jimmy Johnson is running in this race. So they have 9 teams in this race, which that helps their strength in numbers, but they still are significantly outnumbered by Chevrolet and Ford. But Toyota has not won a Daytona 500 since 2020. Their Daytona 500 wins, they only have 3 all-time, 2020, 2019, and 2016. And something interesting about that, this is something that you got to think about. The only times that Toyota has won the Daytona 500 has been with Denny Hamlin. No other Toyota driver has ever won a Daytona 500. Tony Stewart never did it. Kyle Busch never did it. Martin Truex Jr. hasn't done it. Only Denny Hamlin has won the Daytona 500 with Toyota. Will that trend be snapped? Will a non-Denny Hamlin Toyota driver win? I guess we'll see. As for Ford, they won 2 consecutive Daytona 500s in 2022 and 2021. They also won in 2017 and 2015. Now, I'm going over just the last 10 Daytona 500s. I did not make that clear. But for Toyota, the Toyota thing was factual. They have only won 3 Daytona 500s, and they have all come with Denny Hamlin. But as for Ford and Chevy, I'm only looking at the last 10 Daytona 500s because if I went through the entire history back to the 1950s, it would get a little skewed. But yes, Ford has won 2022, 2021, 2017, and 2015. So they have won consecutive 500s like Toyota recently, 2021 and 2022. As for Chevrolet, they have some gaps in between their Daytona 500s. 2023 was their most recent, so they are the defending Daytona 500 champs with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. But you have to go back to 2018 with Austin Dillon, and before that to 2014 with Dale Jr. And then I made an exception of the last 10 with this because it's a point I want to make. Chevrolet has not won back-to-back Daytona 500 since 2013 and 2014. Jimmy Johnson won it in 2013 with Hendrick Motorsports. Dale Jr. won it with Hendrick in 2014. So that is the last time they have won consecutive Daytona 500s. They are looking to end that long drought. So ultimately, who would I pick in this? Look, as I said, this race can get fluky. It could get wild. And since it's a whole manufacturer, I'm going to take the worst odds out of the 3. I'm going to take Toyota at plus 220. Just put $10 on it. So you could win $22, get your $10 back for a grand old total of $32. But I'm going to take Toyota to win. Look, I'm going to spread some of these bets out. Some of them are going to counteract each other. You know, if I pick a Chevrolet driver to win, if I pick Toyota as a manufacturer to win, yeah, both of them can't win. But, you know, if one of them wins, it'll override the other. It'll compensate the loss. So ultimately, there are going to be some overlappings here. But in this style of race, it's so chaotic. You never know. Now, next up is overtime. Will there be an overtime? Caesar Sportsbook, this is the irony of the hat, is that the sportsbook I look at is Caesar Sportsbook, but they don't sponsor a race car, so I didn't get your hat, Caesars. That MGM sponsors the 8. But Caesar Sportsbook is currently showing overtime. They only give you an option of yes. There is no option. The yes option is yes, minus 160. Will there be overtime? And it's quite interesting because 6 of the last 10 Daytona 500s have gone to overtime, but 5 out of the last 6 have gone to overtime. So in the last few years, it's gotten a little ugly at the end of these things and have required overtime. Whereas, 10 years ago, it was a little more calm, more smooth sailing, and they could keep it together. But 5 of the last 6 overtime. Both races in the next-gen era in the Daytona 500 have gone to overtime. Yeah, I'm feeling overtime with this one. We saw how chaotic those duels could get, and I'm just feeling overtime. This one's a pure feeling. No, I don't like the odds. I don't like minus 160. I really don't like anything in the minus, especially when it is not a 100% guarantee. But I do have a feeling overtime will happen in this race. This is just a hunch. I gave you some numbers there, but Toyota, yes, to win, or I already said that. I'm reading the wrong thing. Overtime to happen, yes, $20 at minus 160 to win $22.50. Correction, $12.50. Once again, I cannot read. So right now we've got $10 on Toyota to win at plus 220. We've got $20 on the race to go to overtime at minus 160. What is next? Laps led by any driver. So this would be the most laps led in the race. Not necessarily who's it going to be, but how many laps is it going to be? The over-under is currently at 70.5, with the over being at, I think, plus 110, the under at minus 130. And here's the history of the next-gen car in the Daytona 500. It's a small sample size, yes, but Brad Keselowski has led the most laps in the last 2 Daytona 500s. In 2022, he led 67 laps. In 2023, he led 42 laps. And that's why I'm leaning towards the under on this a lot. But at the same time, we could see a situation if there's an early crash, like less than 30 laps into the race. If there's an early crash, it takes out half the field. everyone gets really conservative trying to make it to the end, then that's when you would see a situation where someone leads more than this amount of laps. But ultimately, I think they keep it mostly clean early. And if there is a crash, I don't think it's going to take out half the field like what happened in 2021. So I'm going to say under 70.5 at minus 130. And I'm going to say $20 again. So that's half our budget on under 70.5, yes to overtime, and Toyota to win. Next is drivers to lead a lap. And this is a little tricky because, once again, you see that number I just gave you, under 70.5, and you're thinking, oh, that means a lot of guys are going to lead laps in this thing. And yeah, that could be the case. You look at 2023, 21 drivers, more than half the field, led a lap in this race. But you go 1 year prior, and only 13 guys led a lap in this race. It's a difficult call. It really is. The overs at minus 130, the unders at plus 100. I'm not confident either way. You can take action on it if you want. I'm going to stay away from it personally. Just too many question marks. Now, the next one I think is quite the interesting wagering option. It's drivers to finish in the top 10 via each manufacturer. We got Toyota at over under 1.5. Chevy and Ford are both 4.5. So will there be more or less than 1.5 cars that finish in the top 10 for Toyota? And that's the one I find most intriguing. The Chevy and Ford, 4.5 is a big number. And ultimately, I would lean under, but there's also a lot of them. So if the Toyotas all get wiped out in a wreck, then, Chevy or Ford, one of those is going over. So ultimately, I don't like the Ford or Chevy, but Toyota is more intriguing to me. And as I said earlier, Toyota now has 9 cars in the field. They have a couple more, 3 more cars in the field than they did last year. And they are competitive cars. We saw how well Eric Jones did in the duel yesterday. Led some laps, got up front. He's got 2 teammates in this thing. He's got his Toyota teammates now. And we saw both duels were won by Toyotas, Tyler Reddick and Christopher Bell. Denny Hamlin's won 3 Daytona 500s. Bubba Wallace is a good super speedway racer. I think it's very possible that 2 or more, and even if it's just that number 2, all you need is 2 in the top 10. I like that over 1.5 a lot for Toyota. In fact, I like it $25 worth out of this $100 budget. I'm taking a quarter of this fake budget and putting it on Toyota over 1.5 minus 45. So that leaves us $25 left on our budget. Let's recap it real quick. We've got $10 on Toyota to win at plus 220. We've got $20 on, yes, overtime will happen in this Daytona 500 at minus 160. We've got $20 on under 70.5 in terms of the most laps led by a single driver at minus 130. And then we've got Toyota over 1.5 at minus 145, $25 on that one. So we have $25 left on our budget to pick a winner, or multiple winners in this case. Now, usually when it comes to the mile and a half, when it comes to the short tracks, when it comes to the more traditional racetracks, I usually, I would take this budget and I would focus it on 2 to 3 drivers at most. Sometimes you're just really confident that someone will win, like, Kyle Larson at Darlington last fall. He was due for a win. He's done so good. You might put your entire race winner budget on a Kyle Larson at Darlington. Or in this situation, it's a super speedway. The odds are much longer, and even with the favorites, the favorite is Joey Logano at 10 to 1. It's more of a long shot throughout the entire field, but at the same time, almost anyone can win this race, as I just showed you with the past 3 winners. Now, before I actually give you my picks, I'm going to show you the odds themselves. I'm not going to read every single one. It would take too long. I'm going to give you 5 to 10 seconds on each of these. You can pause it and look at them yourself. Now, with these odds, the race winner odds at the Daytona 500, with the odds at a super speedway, as I said, I like to spread it out a little bit more. I've only bet one super speedway before, and it worked. It was at Daytona 2022. I had Austin Dillon in my lineup, and it worked. So I'm going to try this strategy again. I'm going to see how this works. But I'm going to pick one favorite, and then I'm going to pick a few underdogs. Now, the pick for my favorite is ultimately going to be my Daytona 500 pick. I picked him in my preseason predictions video as my Daytona 500 champion. And this is ultimately my straight up pick to win the Daytona 500. He's won at multiple super speedways in the next gen era. He's been extremely competitive at all three super speedways in the next gen era: Daytona, Talladega, and the new Atlanta track. And yes, he missed the playoffs last year. There's been a lot of talk about, can he bounce back this year? Last year was such an unstable season for that team. My pick to win is Chase Elliott. He's currently sitting at plus 1,300, 13-1. But Caesars has a boost for him at 15-1. So I'm going to put $9 on that boost for $144 if he were to lock up that win. So that is my pick to win. Another favorite I would like if I didn't make that pick, Brad Keselowski. I know he's the second favorite at 11-1, but he seems like he's due for a Daytona 500. He's led the most laps in the last two 500s. He's been great at the super speedways, not just in this next gen car, but the old gen car. He's got 6 Talladega wins. He has a Daytona win, just hasn't got the 500 done. He's so good at these super speedways. RFK has shown a lot of speed at these super speedways. In fact, his teammate Chris Buescher is the most recent winner back in August. So if I wasn't taking Elliott, I would have taken Brad Keselowski at 11-1. So we have $16 left to burn because these will all more than likely be wrong. I'm going to take a medium pack guy here. I'm going to take Bubba Wallace at 18-1. $4 on this. Once again, you know, if you get it right, you're going to get a good chunk of money back, and it'll cover off all the other race win bets and even a couple of those others if you get them wrong. So Bubba Wallace at 18-1. He's a really good super speedway racer. He has 2 runner-ups in the Daytona 500, including one with the next gen car in 2022. He's just really good at this style of track. He knows Daytona. I know things can happen, but he's done well in this race before. I think that's a solid wager. Maybe not put a lot of money on it, but put something on it because it does pay out well. Next up, I'm going to go with another Toyota, Eric Jones, 28-1. Once again, $4, just like Bubba. That's a bigger payout, $116. But yes, Eric Jones, he's been a good super speedway racer. He has won at Daytona with Toyota back when he was with Joe Gibbs Racing in 2018, I believe it was. But Legacy Motor Club, imagine that storyline if Eric Jones could bring them back to victory lane. Not just the team, but in their first ever start with Toyota. That would be a huge deal. To get that number 43 back in victory lane at Daytona would be a huge deal. So I like those odds. It's a little bit of a long shot, but Eric Jones, a good super speedway racer. Toyota's got more numbers this year. That's why I got a couple Toyota guys in there. Now these next guys, these are the true long shots. This is what, you know, you put the minimum bet on, because if they end up winning, it covers everything. It covers everything. All the rest we've talked about, if any of these hit, it covers everything off. You can lose the rest. You're in the plus, baby. First one is Corey LaJoie. It would barely put you in the plus, but $2 on 50-1 odds, that wins you $100 plus you get your 2 back. So you are now over that $100 budget. You have won the Daytona 500 in betting. LaJoie, the Spire team, has shown a lot of improvement over the past couple of years. LaJoie almost won a super speedway in the next gen era at Atlanta in the summer of 2022. He's led some laps at super speedways. It's a really good value, 50-1. As for the rest of these long shots, David Reagan, a former Daytona winner, not the 500, came really close in 2011. He's in an RFK car, which I just mentioned. RFK really strong at this style of track. He's got 2 really good teammates that if he's up front at the end with them, he's going to have a shot at this thing. 70-1 odds, $2 to get 142. And then these last 2 are at 85-1, and these are a bit crazy. Todd Gilland. Todd Gilliland's at front row. Front row won the Daytona 500 in 2021. Michael McDowell is an excellent super speedway racer. Todd Gilliland has proved to be actually quite a solid super speedway racer. And Todd Gilliland, you know, front row, just made that deal with Team Penske. They're, you know, a higher tier 1 Ford team in the upcoming years. Could it happen? At 85-1, it's possible. It's a long shot once again, but it's possible, and that would get you $172. Ooh, spicy. And then the other one is Riley Herbst. Riley Herbst, man, he has had himself the year. 2023, you know, he enters the year and everyone's memeing him. Oh, he's a pay driver. He's not going to do anything. and he goes and wins his first Xfinity race in dominant fashion at Las Vegas, 1.5 miles. He makes select Cup starts for Front Row and Rick Ware Racing, leads laps, is up front, qualifies in the top 10 for multiple super speedways. Riley Herbst, for some reason, has this next-gen car down, and why not? We've got a budget. If any of these winners hit, we are very in the plus here. But thanks for watching this video about fake money, about money that's not actually spent. Actually, back in November at the Las Vegas Grand Prix, they did have Daytona 500 odds, and a couple of those guys, yeah, I got something on them. But yeah, so thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see me talk about odds more, let me know. We can make this a weekly tradition for all the races, Atlanta, Vegas, Phoenix, etc., throughout the season. But I'm looking forward to the rest of this Daytona 500 weekend. We got the Truck Series tonight, Xfinity hopefully tomorrow, Cup hopefully Sunday. Thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next video.